Okay, hello everybody. So, is anybody here interested in hearing about magic? Well, good. We have some stuff to talk about. That works out. Okay, first, I got to introduce our panel. So first up, we have Aaron Forsythe, Senior Director of Magic R&D. Next up, from our story team, our design manager, Jenna Helland. Magic Senior Art Director, Jeremy Jarvis. Is that a self-portrait, Jeremy?
Yes, yes.
Next up, our manager of Magic Global Brand Marketing, Liz Lamb-Ferro. And I'm your host, Mark Rosewater. Okay, so today was the pre-release for Magic Origins. And a lot of people have been talking about this being the end of the core sets. But it's not how we think of it. To us, this is the beginning of a new era of Magic. Now, there are 3 big changes that are coming. I wrote an article last year. Hopefully some of you read it. I talked a lot about 2 of the changes, but I didn't talk about the third one too much. So we're going to go over the first 2 changes a little bit and then talk in great length about the third change. Okay, so first, change number 1, the 2-block paradigm. Instead of 1 block, we have 2 blocks every year. Change number 2, the altering of the standard rotation. Instead of 2 years, it's 18 months. And change number 3, a shift in storytelling. So I've talked a lot about the first 2. Today, we're going to talk a lot about the third. But first, let's recap the first 2. Okay, 2-block paradigm. So what that means is, for many, many years, for example, we put out Mirage, and we told the story of Jamora. Then came Visions, and we told more about Jamora. Then came Weatherlight, and we completely changed the story and talked about the Weatherlight. Or we had Mirrodin, where it was a set all about artifacts. And then Darksteel, a set all about artifacts. And then Fifth Dawn, a set about 5-color. Or we had Zendikar. And we talked about Worldwake. And then we changed all the mechanics for the last set. So we had this problem for many years, which is we didn't know how to handle the third set. The third set, for years and years and years causes problems. We finally figured out the solution. Stop doing third sets. And something else we realized is once a year we had this neat thing where we put a set out and people get all excited, there was a new block and everyone would celebrate, and it was just this great time of energy in the Magic community. And we're like, why just do that once? Let's do that twice. And so the idea is we're just going to do 2 blocks every year. Every year, 2 blocks. Not 1, but 2. Now, on our side, we have to make 2 blocks a year, which is a little daunting. But, we work 2 years ahead, so it's going to work out really well for you guys. Okay, change number 2, the altering of standard rotation. So Aaron's going to talk about this.
Okay, how many of you guys play competitive standard? It is our most played competitive sanctioned format, and it involves, up to now, has been the last 2 years' worth of cards on a rotating basis. And we had to change that with the 2-block model. And that was a tricky decision for us. What we wanted to make sure happened was that every time a new block came into, it rotated into standard, that it had the same impact as the preceding block. So we needed to make sure that standard was the same size every time a new block rotated in, and not small when the fall set came out and a lot larger when the spring block came out. So that decision to make sure that happened, to make sure that the new toys that we're providing to you guys actually show up and get played and matter, meant we had to rotate the format twice a year. Now, the next question we had to solve was, how long should cards be legal once we know we're rotating twice a year? And typically, the fall set's been legal for 2 years, and the spring set, or the set that comes out the time Magic Origins, has been legal about 15 months. So we decided, after looking at how quickly the metagame has been shifting recently, and how many huge tournaments have been happening recently where we're getting results from Magic Online and the internet and whatnot, that we needed to make sure we couldn't leave things around for too long. Things were getting solved really quickly. Decks were becoming old. So we settled on 18 months was the time that we wanted each block to be legal. So, for instance, the card Siege Rhino, which is a huge deal in Standard right now. So this card has only been... that's my point. This card has only been legal in Standard for 9 months. And that may seem like a lifetime for many of you that have been playing the format. And so it's going to rotate out after 18 months and not the 2 years that we have typically let fall sets be legal, and that's how it's going to be going forward. So we think 18 months gives us we've seen this card, we've played this card, it's done its thing, and now it's time to move on.
Okay, so moving on. So the third change, so one of the things that excites me, so this is my 20th year working on Magic. And in the 20 years, we've never done something as big as this current change. It's just the sweeping of just how it affects what we're doing. And so Aaron and I sort of recapped the two things we had already talked about, but this last thing is really important. We are fundamentally changing how we do story. And so there's 6 key components of it. We're going to talk about that today. So first off, a central cast of characters. If you want to double down on story, which is what we're doing, we're going to double down on story. We're going to make story matter even more than it has. And, right, okay, that's good. And one of the ways to do that is you want a central cast of characters. You want to have, we've been bouncing around. It's Elza's story, it's Sarkhan's story. We want a central cast of characters, so we're going to be doing that. We want a continuous story. We want something where Magic, one of the advantages of doing 2 blocks a year is the pace of the story is much, much faster, because we're telling the story twice as fast. And so we will have the ability to do a continuous story. We're going to get story on cards. That's something important for us, is getting the story on the cards. We're going to revisit loose threads. There's a lot of cool things. The creative team's done all these neat things, and there's all these stories that have kind of been left open that we're going to go back to a lot of those to pick those up. We're trying really hard to make the story more visible so that you guys know what the story is. And finally, we're going to tell the story, a common story across all the venues. We want to be able to tell you the Magic story not just in the cards, but in many different ways. So we're going to talk about all these 6 things today, because Magic is changing in really cool ways, and we've talked a lot about the 2-block model, we've talked about rotation, we haven't really talked about story. So today, we want to explain to you, this is the third pillar, and like I said, we're in the future. I get to see what we're doing 2 years from now, and there's really amazing things coming. So today, we're going to talk all about this. So we're going to start by talking about the central cast of characters. So Jenna.
Okay, so it was around Theros block that we started talking about we wanted to do some new things with story. There were some good things happening in story at the time, but we wanted to do more. We wanted to reach more people. We wanted for more people to be able to see themselves in Magic's story. So we talked about a number of things, but we settled on one aspect fairly quickly, and it was that we wanted this central cast of characters. And this is who became the Origins 5. So we've got Gideon, Jace, Liliana, Chandra, and Nissa. So once we'd settled on our cast of characters, we knew the next thing is we had to get to know them really well, better than we've ever known them before. What are their motivations, their fears? How are they going to change and progress throughout their lives? And to understand that, we had to go back to the beginning. These characters, they haven't led quiet lives. The Planeswalkers sparked, ignite in times of trauma or high stress or things that shape people, so they've been shaped by adversity. And so by going back and telling their origin stories, we're planting the seed for future Magic storytelling. All right, so let's talk about each of them just a little bit. Let's get to know him a little bit. Here's Gideon. Gideon was born Kithian Iora on Theros. How did he go from troubled street kid to the powerful protector of the innocent that we know him as today? I should say throughout this, we're going to be seeing the wonderful Origins art. We're also going to sneak in a couple illustrations for you from Battle for Zendikar. So, yeah. So here he is. Even as a troubled street kid, people were drawn to him by his charisma and his combat skills. He ended up in prison for stealing, where he was sort of taken under the wing of the warden, who helped him develop his spellcasting. When he got out of prison, he came under the attention of Heliod, except while he was doing this task for Heliod, he let his hubris get the best of him, and he tried to kill Erebos, god of the dead, which was a really bad idea. Erebos retaliated, and of course Gideon's able to protect himself, but he was not able to protect his friends, and his friends were killed. And in that moment of trauma, Gideon's spark ignited, and he ended up on Bant, where he began his lifelong quest for redemption to make sure that he never harmed anyone or caused harm like that again. Okay, you ready for the new art? Gideon on Zendikar. All right, on to Jace. You guys, a lot of love for Jace. Awesome.
Skip it, Mark. They don't want to hear it. Let's have Aaron talk about OP policy for another 45 minutes.
All right, Jace. Okay. He was born on Vryn. How did he go from misunderstood pariah to this brilliant and mysterious telepath that we know him as today? So people didn't get him on Vryn. People gave him a hard time. He was different. He didn't fully understand himself. He became mentored by the Sphinx, Almaharet, and who helped him realize his sort of incredible mind magic. But then he realized that the Sphinx was manipulating him, and he set a mental trap for him, which ultimately destroyed the Sphinx's mind and traumatized Jace as well. And in that moment, his Planeswalker spark ignited, and he ended up on Ravnica with little memory of who he was or where he came from. And this began his lifelong quest for knowledge, for answers, to solve puzzles, not the least of which who he is. So that's Jace. Who's up next? Liliana. Oh, Jace got more love than Liliana. Okay, we'll have to remember that. Liliana, she was born in Dominaria. How'd she go from aspiring healer to sort of this devious necromancer who commands legions of zombies? Even as an aspiring healer, she was already dabbling in the dark arts. She had this sense that she would do whatever it takes to achieve her goals. When an adversary tricked her into not healing her brother's wounds, but turning him into an undead monstrosity, her Planeswalker spark ignited, and she ended up on Innistrad, where she began her journey to become sort of this amazing necromancer. But ultimately, at the heart of that journey, she's trying to avoid her own death. She's a necromancer who fears death. She's always trying to keep one step ahead of it. All right, who's next? Chandra? Oh, yeah. Okay, good.
There's love for Chandra.
There's love for Chandra. Good thing. Chandra, she was born on Kaladesh. How did she go from rebellious troublemaker to, well, rebellious troublemaker, but also an accomplished pyromancer who challenges authority? She was born to rebellious parents on Kaladesh who kind of chafed under the consulate's authority. One day while she was running an errand for them, she ran and got into the scrape with the authorities, and her pyromancy ignited, and she ended up burning down part of the city. She and her parents were forced to flee. Chandra blamed herself for this, although it was way more complicated. When the authorities caught up with them, her father was killed, and she was taken back for execution. But before the executioner could swing his blade, her Planeswalker spark ignited, and she ended up on Regatha, where she begins this lifelong journey for freedom, so people can live free and be who they are. Nissa. Oh, good. Nissa. How did she go from pariah to the sort of master of elemental magic who's dedicated to protecting nature on all worlds? She was a member of the Draga tribe on Zendikar. She had visions which kind of made her on the outs with her tribe. They didn't understand what she was seeing. She didn't understand what she was seeing, but she knew that there was something wrong with Zendikar. So she went on this journey to Akum, where she had this vision of Emrakul sort of in stasis in her world, and the mind-boggling sort of impact of this ignited her spark, and she ended up on Lorwyn, where she went back to Zendikar as quickly as possible. Because she'd made a promise to the plane to make sure that she would try to heal what afflicted it. So if you are interested in these origin stories, they are all on our website. Please go and read them. They're all there. The gorgeous art. It's for everybody to go and read. We would love for you to do that.
You said she went back to Zendikar?
Oh, yeah. Some new art for you guys.
Explain what they're seeing.
Yeah. This is Nissa on her elemental, Ashaya. This is where she likes to take her perch atop her favorite elemental. So one thing that you'll notice is that we are talking about a central cast of characters. They don't know each other at this point. At their origin stories, they are not acquainted. So the next thing that we kind of have to do, we have this thing called, it's our writer's room. It's where we workshop Uncharted Realms, where we do story planning, and where we work on character guides for these characters. And one of the processes that we had to do was, ask really multiverse-shattering questions like, what would happen if Gideon and Jace tried to move a couch? Stuff like that. And it sounds silly, but we actually do ask each other these questions because we're trying to get in the heads of these characters. But the next thing that is important is this focus on interaction between these characters because they're coming together. I should say, I do have to tell you, you're going to see 4 of these Planeswalkers in the Battle for Zendikar block, but Liliana is not. You'll see her soon.
So,
why did you make that decision, Mark? That seems unpopular.
So one of the things that we'll be seeing is characters start working together. That if you actually go back in Magic and look at Planeswalkers, there's not a lot of chance of seeing them together. So we have some from Battle for Zendikar, a piece of art of them working together.
All right, yes.
You guys ready?
So real quick, there is a series of Uncharted Realms starting next week. It's called The Prelude to Zendikar. It's basically taking everyone from where you saw them before, one by one, and bringing them towards the Battle for Zendikar story. So Gideon, he never forgot Zendikar. You're going to see what he's been doing since we saw him last on Zendikar. Jace, living Guildpact on Ravnica. He's going to get a visitor that's going to shake up his world. Liliana, she's still struggling under the chain veil. She's got to find some solution or she might lose herself forever. Chandra has gotten herself in a position of authority. Were you expecting me to say that? No. But she did. See how that works out. Wow. And then we have Nissa, and she is boots on the ground, eye to eye with the Eldrazi, trying desperately to save her world before it's destroyed.
Okay, so the second thing we're talking about today is continuous story. That one of the things that's happened, Jeremy made a chart we have at the office, which took all the different pieces of all the different things to demonstrate all the things that were going on. And what we realized is, you guys don't get a giant chart to show you everything, that we want the story to be a little more cohesive. So Jeremy's going to talk now about sort of how we're making a continuous story.
Right, so what we want to do is just to prove to you guys that you probably know more about these characters than you think you do, is to put them in sequential order. We've been telling bits and pieces, like when you first met Gideon, it was on Zendikar. Origins is now a pause and rewind back to what propelled him there. And so I'm gonna stop and tell a story real quick because Ari Levitt showed up. Ari, stand up real quick.
Hey, Ari.
Yeah, so.
Ari's on the story team with Jenna.
So Ari is on Jenna's story team. Ari and I were working on Origins because Ari was the creative liaison in Duel's Origins. Yay. It was a lot of work, people. So as soon as we heard about the scope of what Origins was and what it was going to entail, we're like, oh my God, we're already late. We're already late. We have to make all of these characters and all of these ancillary characters, and we have to know what Jace looked like when he was a kid, and we know exactly one thing about Vryn, and that's Cheerios. We have no idea what Kaladesh is about or Regatha, and so we just had to start making stuff, And so we wrote up, these the art descriptions for the double phase characters once we had the initial design work nailed down for their young versions, which were playing in a loop when you guys came in here. So this one was particularly constrained. Like, it just looks like Kithian leaning against a plinth, right? Well, it's actually telling you a lot of information. And not only the tonal information about him of like, oh, there's this kid, he's kind of a street tough, he's overconfident, but not completely dislikable. That's already a tough target, right? And by the way, we want Heliod looking on in the background, and I over-constrained it. Like, it was super important to me, like him leaning against the foot of this statue, like Heliod's noticing him when he's literally standing at the foot of greatness. I'm very clever. And then, oh, by the way, it has to work at card size, and it has to work at 16 by 9 and at 4 by 3 because Duels uses both of those aspect ratios. And so it was just, the art description was a mess. I gave it to William. I had William Marai. I had complete faith in Will, and this was the first sketch to come in. And so it comes in for a little origin story on Ari. Ari's a super nice guy, right? He's earnest, he's genuine, he's not like me at all. He enjoys coming in and just writing a bunch of words and making magic. And so this comes in, and I'm super excited, and I'm so excited to show Ari. It's just firing on all cylinders and working super well. And I'm like, Ari, come over the shoulder. So he comes up to my desk, and he's over the shoulder, and I hear this super uncharacteristic, "That smug little shit." And I'm like, oh, right, you were a history teacher. You taught that kid, didn't you? And Ari's like, I taught all of those kids. And so that's all I can think about every time I see this. And also, I enjoy putting Ari on blast. All right, so what we know now, rewinding and looking sequentially, we know that Kithian was a youth on Theros that was troubled and caught the eye of Heliod with some sort of potential. We know he was incarcerated. The prison warden Hixus took him under his tutelage and kind of started to teach him this hieromancy, this law magic, start to instill a value system in him. Then we see him start to live up to those standards, to embrace the responsibility that his power gives him. This is Kithian and his irregulars defending the city of Akros. He gets a little too big for his britches, or his skirt, as the case may be, and he lashes out, and he can take it, and his buddies can't, and he loses people. It's his fault. And due to the trauma of that realization, his spark ignites, and he is transported to Bant, where there are castles and angels. Theros doesn't have these things. There are knights. There are these orders that he can aspire to be a part of and continue to pursue those principles in that training. This is Gideon as a knight of Bant on a Leotau, which is kind of a lion cow. Then, when we first met him, chronologically, he was on Zendikar, trying to use those principles to defend the people and the plane, and it almost cost him his life. He was not able, through no fault of his own, to do that, and he had to peace out. And he went to Ravnica to look for support, to look for help, to look for people that might be able to support him in a return to Zendikar. And he will return to Zendikar. You guys have seen this. This is the key art for Battle for Zendikar. And this time, here's a preview of new art. This time he's going to have allies.
Literally.
Yeah, you were... That was supposed to be my drop the mic thing, just saying allies, and you guys really let me down.
Okay, so another important thing we're going to be doing is we want to get the story on the cards. Magic has definitely messed around with a lot of things in the past. We've tried different things. It's very important for us to figure out how, when you play the game, to see the story. So Jenna's going to talk about what we're going to do.
So when we used to tell the story in novels, we would save part of the story for the novel, which meant it wasn't on cards. And that was fine if you wanted to read the novel, but if you didn't, then you didn't know what was happening. So we're starting something new. We're calling it pivotal events. It starts with Battle for Zendikar. For every set, there's going to be 5 pivotal events. These are crucial moments in the story that you need to know if you're going to know the story, and they're going to be on cards.
Give us an example from the past.
Yeah. So if you think of Elspeth, there was the card Deicide, which is one of my all-time favorite cards. This was the moment that Elspeth killed Xenagos, and people knew this, whether they read the novel or not. People knew this. What they didn't know was, if they didn't read the novel, was the end of the story, the betrayal by Heliod and Elspeth going down to the underworld. If we were doing this now, these would have been pivotal events. So we would like to give you a glimpse as a art from pivotal event from Battle for Zendikar. I'll say 3 words, probably not in the right order. Gate, slaughter, sea.
Okay, so another thing we're going to be doing is revisiting loose threads. So that's a segue there.
It's like a heart rate.
So one of the things that's important is Magic has a lot of rich history, and that's important to us. And so we're going to talk about how we're going to weave that back in. So we're going to start. This is Jenna again.
All right. So we're trying to pick up things that we sort of dropped off. When we told the story slower and it wasn't on cards, there were things that people were excited about that we didn't get to go back to and finish up, conclude. So one of these that people were excited about from the original Zendikar was Obnixilis. People were intrigued by his flavor text. He was a demon planeswalker who lost his spark. So we've been telling some Uncharted Realms. We've kind of been working him back into the story. He started out as a human who was hell-bent on conquering everything. He became a planeswalker.
This is when he was a brand manager at Wizards.
I have shed my usual attire for.
He became a demon. He went to Zendikar to partake of its delicious mana, where he was trapped and lost his wings, and there was a whole bunch of stuff. I'm not going to go into it all right now because we have some new stuff we want to show you. He began to nurse this grudge, a centuries-old grudge at this point. He hates Zendikar. He hates its native planeswalkers like Nahiri and soon-to-be Nissa. So let's see some brand new Battle for Zendikar art. The core are back.
Look at
Although
that forearm.
we probably see a little better picture of them than this, because this is just
Yeah.
not shown much. How about this?
So as you know, Gideon and Nissa are there. Obnixilis is there, and I have a feeling they're going to run across each other.
Okay, now there's another component. Jeremy's going to talk about this.
Yeah, this is another thread we're picking up. This was on the website. Some of you may not have seen this, but this is previously released. These are the 3 pre-mending planeswalkers a long, long time ago, originally incarcerating the Eldrazi. This is Ugin, who you know was dead for a while, and then something happened. We made like 400 or 500 cards about that recently, the whole Tarkir thing. But that's Ugin, Sorin, and Nahiri the Lithomancer. They've worked out this Hedron magic. They've managed to incapacitate the Eldrazi, and much like an allergic response, you can see the Akum mountain range very, very slowly engulfing them through the years. That's where the Akum mountain range came from. So that was a long, long time ago. Then in Zendikar, we saw Sorin again here. Nissa has the bright idea that, like, hey, this isn't great for our place. It's causing these royals. It's causing these problems. I need the Eldrazi off of my home. And Sorin's like, no, you might. I've seen what that's like. That's not great. And she's like, I hear you, but I'm gonna do it anyway. And that led to, here is the key art from Rise of the Eldrazi. As the Eldrazi rise, and you can tell that's happening because you can see them rising. And that's pretty much where we close the curtain, right? That was the end of the act. We closed the curtain. The curtain's about to reopen, and we're going to see some new stuff, like, oh, this guy's back in play. We know that Ugin is familiar with the Eldrazi, has a beef with them, has insight into them. It's now an issue Jace is dealing with. This previously would have been impossible were it not for the events of the Tarkir block bringing Ugin back to life. And here they are, having a meeting of the minds, pretty literally, probably discussing the merits of blue. And this image is actually an excellent capture of what we're going to be doing going forward. We're going to take a whole bunch of threads that are there, we're going to yarn them up, and we're going to start running with them. So right now is the brief look back to Origins. Let's all get caught up and then be ready to hit the ground running with Battle for Zendikar. This is what's coming.
Okay. Next, one of the important things is it's not only important that we have a story, it's important that you guys know the story. And so one of the things, we've spent a lot of time over the last 23 years, 22 years, trying different things to make sure you guys understand the story. And we finally clicked on what we think is the right mix, which uses Uncharted Realms. So every Wednesday, if you come to our website, we have an article called Uncharted Realms. They're short stories. You don't have to buy anything. They're obviously free. And what we want you to do is give us a chance to sort of show you tell you the story, tell you about what's going on, and that when we tell you a story, you can directly link it to the cards, that you can see what is going on in the story, and because it's a short story every week, we can jump around, we can have different characters, we can we do planes when we need to, and that we can make sure that all of you know what is going on. Now, this we started during con, so this is obviously something that as we're starting new, this is something we've been ramping up. But it's something we're putting we're going to do a lot of things to make sure that you can see and understand the stories. So one of the things that's very important is we've been working with the art team to make sure that there's always graphics that when you have the stories. So one day we're going to tell a short story about Seagate, and you're going to see the following picture, which is another teaser from Battle for Zendikar.
What is in Kiora's hand?
Okay, so final piece is telling a common story across venues. That we want the game of Magic, the card game, to tell you the stories, but that's not the only place to do it. So Liz is going to talk about this.
So I have to ask, how many of you have downloaded Magic Duels onto your iOS device? Woo! All right, for those of you who haven't, you should. It's free. So, in Magic Duels, this is one of my favorite things about this game experience is that, so you have awesome story, and you have moments on cards, but getting to actually put playing with those cards and story together into one happy place is kind of a new thing for us, because, the second you shuffle your deck, that story's out of order. You're not really, you're making things go together that didn't necessarily go together. But in Duels, what you're going to get to do is see things like, all right, let's play through Gideon's origin story. What would happen if we got to play through things like facing off against the Akroan Guards? And by the way, shout out again to Ari Levitch, because it was his team that took that giant origin story of Gideon and figured out how to condense it into this immersive experience in Duels. So here you can see we've got Gideon taking on the Erebos' Titan, so we're winning. This is good. And true facts, my mom actually has started playing Magic because of Magic Duels, so it is the best way to start playing the world's best strategy card game. Just have to put that plug in there because I'm the brand manager and that's my job. So thank you. My boss will thank you for clapping for that. So I heart Magic players. We're the best. All right. So the other cool thing about this too is that you can see these big moments for each Planeswalker as you go through. So like for example, Liliana, when you get to hers, we're showing Gideon's right now, but when you get to the end of Liliana's, you actually get to face off against the 4 demons in this kind of endurance battle. It is hard, except the fact that you might not beat it the first time for all of you who are really good Magic players in the room. But it's meant to give you something a little bit different. And probably my favorite part of it is at the end of each of these, you're going to see this awesome moment from each Planeswalker's story. So for Gideon, you'll see him Planeswalk to Bant. For Liliana, you'll actually see Kothafed etch the contract onto her skin. The sound of it is going to make your kind of give you the shivers. But you get to see these moments brought to life, and so we'll actually have videos in there to share with you. So download it. It's free. Seriously. Okay. Now, how many of you, good, awesome, wonderful people, stood in line and got the Comic-Con exclusive? Yay! Awesome. Hold it up. If you haven't seen it, gentlemen who hold it, can you hold it up one more time? Somebody held it up in the back. Yeah! All right. So the exciting thing about this is, we talked about how we're talking about story more. We're putting story in every place you can get it. Now you actually have a book of them all together with those beautiful pieces of art in more than this size, so that you can actually take a look at it, immerse yourself in it. It's awesome to read with your kids. Magic is turning into this multi-generational storyline and epic, so it's really cool to see that passing along. So be sure to check those out. And last but not least, I'm sure you've heard of Arena of the Planeswalkers. Maybe? Hey, all right. So if you haven't checked it out, please stop by booth 3213. You can get a demo of it. This is out and about right now, so be sure to check it out.
Yeah, if you haven't had a chance to check it out, it's really, really a fun game. We've worked very closely with Hasbro, our parent company, to make it, and it really does a neat job of taking a board game and giving the components of planeswalkers actually battling each other.
And it has these adorable minis of like Chandra.
Yeah, you get a
So
lot of
wee.
minis. It's actually really, really cool.
Yeah, she's like this little bitty Chandra, and I want to kind of just like put her on my computer and have her sit there and motivate me.
Okay, so now we get to the best part of this. Questions!
Yeah! All right.
Okay, so while we're lining up, I want to show you a little video while we're lining up.
Season 3, baby. Episode 1.
Season 3. For any of you who don't know, Magic the Gathering is a game that is designed for people to feel naughty.
Yes.
Oh, I'm just going to infinitely untap and retap. Wow, my Twin Splinters deck gave me infinity creatures. Got all sensual with my spell.
Yeah.
Get blown on.
I did some airbending, I guess.
You're good at being still. I was talking about my parents. Let's make them cry up top.
Okay, I don't.
Tears.
No,
This is a false sense of confidence they have. And my goblins eat fast.
You left me hanging.
Oh, there we are.
This will test my math skills. My very basic math skills.
We roll it. Gavin! Help! Don't stop, can't stop.
That's my DJing skills.
Yeah.
Untip the tap. What?
Scratch. Yeah,
I'm
we
Fred
get that?
staring this play, Matt.
A little bit of an instant.
Maybe I'll do something instantly on your turn.
Maybe a counter spell.
I'll counter your spells though. The creature there, back to the hand.
But the land's still tapped.
They're absolutely the worst.
That accent or just?
Oh, see you next time.
Okay, it's time for questions. So let's start.
All right, hi guys.
Hi.
As someone who's been following Magic's story for a while and was really kind of pulled into the game because of the uniqueness of the settings, I started in Mercadian Masks and that world in particular. Thank you, the two people who like Mercadian Masks. That world in particular really drew me into the game and showed me how unique it was. And it's that same. So first of all, just thank you for keeping that going. That same, just general fantastic fantasy. So I want to pose a scenario for you guys real quick. A great disaster happens in this panel right now, and all the panelists' sparks ignite. What plane would you hope to end up on when you inexplicably planeswalk?
Denny's.
I'm gonna say Theros because being a pasty pale person from the Pacific Northwest, I want to work on my tan. I've been trying that in San Diego, and that has not been working out for me. I've been
Segovia, because I'd be tall.
woo.
Innistrad, because I want to meet Osric.
Yeah.
Dominaria, because it's like old home.
All right. Oh, thank you guys very much.
All right. Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Hey guys, one quick fake question first. Since you posed it earlier, what would happen if Gideon and Jace tried to move a couch? I really want to know.
So, Mark, go ahead.
My theory is Gideon moves it thinking Jace is helping him.
Yeah, I like that. All right. My real question is, since you're focusing on story now, is there going to be a little more effort on concluding stories and making more of a definite ending? Like the example I could think of is Dragon's Maze. I have no idea what happened at the end of Dragon's Maze. I don't know if the guild won the race or anything.
Yeah. Yes, that's absolutely a focus. And that was one of those examples where if you read the novel, but if you didn't, and that's exactly what we're trying to avoid going forward, is you will know the end of the story because it will be on cards. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello, guys.
Hello.
Yeah, talk in the mic.
Sorry. I know that the current story plots revolve around the new Planeswalkers.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any plans, even in the far future, to revisit things that happened like in the Brothers Wars or the really old sets with Urza and stuff?
As long as there are no follow-up questions, it is something we talk about.
So one of the things we're doing is I'm getting some Twitter questions as well, so we're going to interconnect them, intersplice them. Okay, so the first question I have from The Highs, at The Highs, is there a chance for other Planeswalker origin stories and supplemental products? This is the answer I always say is, if we do something and it is successful and players really like it, it increases the chance of us doing it again. So we're going to see how Origins goes. If people really like that, that is something we can consider doing in the future. Okay, next question.
All right, first, I'd just like to say that this is the third time I've gotten in line to ask a question at a Magic panel, and the first time I've actually gotten to ask a question, so I'm really excited.
Right, persistent.
Yeah.
Hey,
Right.
can I interrupt your question real quick? Did you get a Comic-Con exclusive?
Yeah, 4.
All right, never mind.
You win.
Yeah. We're going to take your question away for that.
All right, my question is, when you go back to a plane like Ravnica or Zendikar, how do you balance bringing back things that the players really liked in the old sets with stuff that's new that people haven't seen before?
Are you asking mechanically or creatively or what?
Mainly mechanically, but I mean anything is.
Well, I can answer mechanically. So let me give you an example. Let's say we went back to Zendikar. One of the very first meetings we said is we put everything up that what was Zendikar? What would people expect? And then we said, what would people most expect to return? And we can't return everything because we want to do new things. And so there's a balance between making sure we bring back a few things that people really like, that they connect to it, but that we leave space to do new things. And we literally prioritized on the board every single thing from Zendikar and then drew a line. That's how we did it. So.
Thanks.
Hey, how's it going? So I think it's cool that you have all the planeswalkers and you're beginning to tell the story of all these creatures, all these guys. But one of the things that I noticed was that they're all 5 of them are various shades of white. And I was wondering if you were going to be introducing more diversity. Now, sure, we get merfolk and we'll get centaur or an artifact gets to be a planeswalker, but I was wondering if there's going to be other shades of reality.
There are, and work was even done with Origins. Like Origins was not only a retelling of origin stories that didn't exist before, but we really took the time to dig down into how we wanted those characters to be perceived. Like, if you notice, it's more plausible now, looking at Chandra, that she's the person that runs through the door into the bar and just starts swinging. Of really trying to get those characters' notes reflected in their visual persona. Gideon is supposed to be Indo-Iranian. Like, he is a person of color. He's not white like I am. He is not super, super dark. We will be broadening the Planeswalker lineup, though. Like, it makes me a little sad to not get the credit for the things we're trying to do. It's just it's difficult to find that tipping point of how loud you have to be for people to be able to visually latch on and just be like, oh, yep, that dude's dark enough. Like that's a no. That's.
Sure.
I know it sounds funny, but it's really not, because that kind of is the conversation of like, okay, who gets to count? Well, Teferi counts. Like, we've actually been doing this for a long time. Like, if you go all the way back to Mirage, like, this is one of the earliest African settings for a fantasy property that is there. We've had characters of color for a long, Agris Kos, and so they've been there. Now, of the central cast right now, yep, it is a light cast, and yep, we're going to be moving for louder inclusion so that people are able to, at a glance, be like, oh yes, this is for me. This is for me. Whoever I am, this is for me.
Sweet. Well, thank you. I've been playing since Antiquities, so I love the game and I love what you guys are doing. So thank you very much.
Awesome.
Hey there. First thing, I would love to say, I think you guys do a wonderful job with the storytelling now. Finding Liliana's headdress on Archangel of Tithe was quite honestly the best part of Origins so far for me.
Awesome.
It just really hit home. I hope your quest to meet Joss Whedon goes well. But my question is, Are we gonna get any more of the iOS exclusives on Android? I mean, I love Magic, and I want to be able to keep it in my pocket. I'm not gonna touch an Apple product.
So. The whole panel's looking at me because I knew I was like, man, I should like bet $1 if somebody's gonna ask that in the first 5 questions. And so, the answer to this is we love our Android fans, first and foremost.
But we also bet you have a PC since you won't touch Apple products.
I actually don't. I don't have any laptop. I'm a
All right.
poor college kid.
So totally understand that. So at this point in time, we do not have any current plans to come to Android, but that's one of the cool things with the change that we made with Magic Duels is that now it's a persistent game client. So when Battle for Zendikar comes out, you will see a good portion of Battle for Zendikar cards coming out into an expansion for Magic Duels. So with those expansions, you might see things like a platform get added or new features get added. So keep clamoring, keep yelling at me online. At Lamb-Ferro is my Twitter handle. Please yell at me. Tell me about Android. Tell me all about it. But we definitely want to. We hear you, Android fans, and we know.
Thank you.
So.
Hi. Now that you're focusing more on the story, I was wondering if there was like any plans to like expand on the paperback novel universe that used to be really big but kind of fizzled out, like new paperbacks at all.
Right now, we're focusing on venues like Uncharted Realms and the stories through duels. Some other things, other story venues that we can't talk about yet. I won't say that we'll never do it, but right now there's a series of shorter form forms, yes, that we're focusing on. Yeah.
Great. Before you go, it sounds like you need a book. So, Danner, can you help me out and get this guy a Comic-Con exclusive so he can have a book to read on his way back home? So, thanks.
Thank you.
Great.
You should ask about a car. A question about cars.
Actually, my question was going to be directly relevant to that.
Okay. It's not like Mary Poppins, buddy, but...
I realize. So I understand. The question wasn't specific for that. But in the sense of a good amount of my friends actually, when we were looking at it for the San Diego Comic-Con, this exclusive, good amount of them, sure, we really enjoyed the cards, but we also, like, one of the main draws was that book. Is there any way to possibly have that book available beyond just the exclusive that was here this weekend?
So, hey, applaud that. So speaking from the product and brand management side of it, you know, as Mark pointed out, if you guys want something like that, yell at us. Like, tell us about it. Like, let us know about it. So at this point, we don't have current plans for it, but. We want it. All right.
Also, the content is online.
Yes.
I mean, all the content that's in the book, all the stories are online. We're not trying. We want you guys to read the story, so that stuff is all available online.
But
I mean, the idea of possibly printing the book. I mean, the exclusive for San Diego was the card, so it is a possibility. It is a possibility.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Hi. So I was one of those guys who always read the books, so I knew what was going on. Which I love them, but I'm constantly barraged at F&M every week by players asking me, hey, explain this to me, I have no idea what's going on. That some of those plot threads are hard to track down and find for people who didn't go and read the books when they're available. Is there plans to go get that older information about like the current plot threads, like, you know, like the Shards of Alara storyline, stuff like that, stuff that's relevant to what we're moving forward into, that's not easy to find anymore?
Yeah, I do know that one of the plans for the website is to start consolidating the information so that you can go to the website and the stories will be laid out so that people can find old stories. That's something they're planning to work on.
Okay.
I would say keep an eye on the web because that is something we want people to be able to access that. And when possible, we'll weave it into what we're doing when it's relevant to the current storyline. So yes.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you put a lot of work and effort into the stories for these like really amazing and legendary cards where, you know, someone opens a flip Planeswalker and it's dripping with flavor and it has
Do you have a flip Planeswalker on you?
Not on me now.
Do you want one?
I would like one, yes.
Hey, Matt Danner. Yeah. So what Matt Danner is handing you is actually a double-faced Liliana Planeswalker signed by the artist Carla Ortiz.
Thank you very much. Sorry. But then you get cards like a 2/2 flyer. How do you design the flavor for those cards? Like, how do you work those into the story? Is it difficult? Is it just like, oh, it's a bird, okay? How do you do that?
Sure. So the less significant kind of inclusions creature-wise are basically part of the stage where the character stories play out. Like when we're designing a new place, one of the critical things we have to do is flesh out that creature grid of like, oh, do we have enough small blue flyers here? Do the big red flyers, those are probably dragons, but maybe not. And if not, then what are they? And really trying to work to, I mean, obviously, if it's a top-down setting, then a lot of those things take care of themselves. If it is not a top-down setting, then we have more versatility to kind of check those boxes, build that grid, and we have artists come in for really, really intense bursts of world building to work with us and help answer those questions. And so it's more of, rather than a story relevance, it's a texture and richness to the place where these stories happen. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
So I heard rumor that you're our last question. So the gentleman behind you who would really feel bad right now, I want to make you happier.
Okay.
Have you downloaded Duels yet?
I was going to when I got home.
Do you need a device on which to do it?
Yes.
So we have an iPhone 6 Plus with all the memory you could ever want on it.
Okay, so we want to thank you guys all for coming today. As a last little teaser, something for you to leave with. And so thank you guys very much for coming. Thank you.